All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking into NIL. I think this is something that's really changing the game in a big way for student athletes.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like if you were back in college and you were killing it on YouTube,
Right.
but you weren't allowed to make any money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what it was like for student athletes before NIL came along.
That's a great analogy.
So to kick things off, can you just give us a quick rundown of what exactly NIL is and how this whole thing even started?
Sure. NIL stands for name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
And it basically gives college athletes the right to make money from their name, their image, and their likeness.
So
it all really started gaining traction back in 2021.
Okay.
When the NCAA finally kind of loosened its grip on this rule that had been in place for a really long time. And, before that, athletes couldn't really cash in on their talent and their hard work.
Right.
Even if they were, attracting tons of attention.
So that means, like, let's say a volleyball player who's really good could, like, partner with a local sportswear company.
Exactly.
Or a basketball player who's also, like, a talented artist.
Yeah.
Could, design and sell their own merch.
Absolutely.
So that seems pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really that simple?
Well, it sounds simple on the surface, but there's a catch. And it's a big one. The rules around NIL, they actually vary from state to state.
Oh, wow.
So some states like California jumped on board early, and they have rules that are pretty friendly to athletes, but other states have taken a more cautious approach.
Okay.
And so we end up with this like patchwork of regulations across the country.
That's wild.
Yeah. So you could have like a star quarterback in Texas who's allowed to profit from jersey sales.
No.
But a player with the same skills in a different state might not be able to do that.
So it's not even just about, like, how good you are at your sport anymore.
Yeah.
It's also about, like, where you happen to be playing.
Exactly.
So what does that mean for high school athletes who are getting recruited?
That's a great question. And it's definitely something that's changing the whole recruiting game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Athletes and their families are now paying really close attention to these different state laws. So imagine you're a top basketball prospect and you're trying to decide between two colleges.
Okay.
Both have great programs.
Uh-huh.
But one's in Florida where there are lots of NIL opportunities, and the other's in a state with really strict rules. It's a big factor in their decision.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So we've talked about how the rules are different all over the place. But let's talk about, like, the real world impact of all this.
Sure.
NIL is opening doors for athletes.
Yeah.
In all sorts of sports, not just the big name football and basketball stars, right?
Absolutely. It's not just about, those massive contracts. We're seeing athletes in all kinds of sports finding creative ways to benefit from NIL.
Yeah.
Like you could have a gymnast with a huge following on social media. They could partner with a nutrition company or even a local gym.
Mm-hmm.
Or, athletes creating their own merchandise lines, like a swimmer selling swim caps with their own logo.
Oh, that's cool.
And it gives them, a sense of ownership and control over their brand.
Yeah, that's really awesome to see them, becoming entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And building their own businesses while they're still in college. So NIL is definitely like reshaping the whole landscape of college sports.
It really is.
It's empowering athletes, but it's also pretty complex and still evolving. So what do you see as, like, the biggest challenges going forward?
Well, one of the big ones is how to make sure there's a level playing field, especially with these different rules in different states.
Right.
There's also the concern about athletes being taken advantage of, especially those who might not have the resources or the guidance to navigate all of this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then, of course, there's the whole debate about how to balance these new NIL rights with the idea that college is supposed to be about education.
Right.
It's a lot to figure.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack, a lot to think about as this all keeps changing.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive. Thanks for breaking all that down for us.
You're welcome.
And to everyone listening, what are your thoughts on this whole NIL thing? It's definitely shaking things up. Keep an eye on it because this is only going to get more interesting.
It is.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time for another deep